most chronic, long-lasting things, whether it be pain or some other physical manifestation, illness, etc., has been brought on by our brain, not imagined, but our brain is struggling with something emotionally, it doesn't want us to deal with it, so it distracts us with something else.
The physical sensation of pain is caused by oxygen deprivation in the muscles, tendons, ligaments brought on by, first he thought it was just muscles, but then he called it tension myositis syndrome, TMS. Then he's like, well, it's also in the ligaments and the tendons, so he started calling it tension myoneural syndrome. And then now they just call it the mind-body syndrome. And entrepreneurs have a lot of physical pain. And the people that have the most physical pain, ironically, are non-narcissistic, empathetic, really caring people. Because what Sarno said, the cause of the pain is repressed emotions that causes the oxygen deprivation in the muscles, tendons, ligaments, and it's unconscious, and it's your brain's way of trying to protect yourself from feeling emotions you don't want to feel. How many of you have heard me talk about the cause of most pain is not structural, it's psychological? So as I say all of this, I believe it was stress, tension based that set it up for me to actually get an injury. And you should have seen me like last couple of days. My whole torso is like, it still is, but I'm like kind of tweaked out, and so if I look kind of weird and funny, it's because I can't even tie my shoes without excruciating pain right now. So if I bend over, it hurts quite a bit. But all that being said, it's because I'm a bad person and I deserved it. So I think that's why. No, but so what was happening was I have this personal trainer that me and Cherie have recently started working out with, and he's been training people. He's 72 years old. He's been training people for 42 years. He has a place in Scottsdale called Basic Training, and he was original friends with Arthur Jones, who invented Nautilus machines, and then before Arthur passed away, he MedX machines, so these $100,000 crazy machines that do all kinds of interesting stuff. And so we do a 1 hour workout, and it's full body to failure on every set. So it's pretty intense. And I decided, so I had a Saturday workout at 4 p.m. and I drive down there, and his wife, who schedules it, screwed up the time. They were incredibly apologetic. They were like, we know how busy your time is, we're so sorry, can you come tomorrow? And I'm like, sure. So Sunday, so here's what I do. After the appointment was there, I decide I'm going to drive to a place called Harbor Freight. That's like, it's like IKEA for tools. Like, it costs like 2 cents to get a toolbox and stuff. And for some reason, I decide to buy this gray toolbox shelf thing. It's like a what do you even call it? It's a cart that has a drawer, and it's a big heavy thing. And if people think that I have people that work for me that do all this shit, I actually do dishes, I do laundry, and then I get in arguments with people like, well, how much is your time? To me, it's actually psychologically soothing to go into dollar stores and just look at shit. And so I go to this place and I see this thing and I say, is there anyone that do these things come assembled? And the guy's like, no. I go, can you help me assemble this thing? If I buy it? He's like, yeah, I can do that. I can put it together for you. And so I decide, well, I'll take one of these and pick the gray color. And then by the time they get it, the guy's, I had an emergency come up. I'm sorry, I can't help you with it. And I'm looking at this thing, and he's like, it's only 4 bolts on each pole, all this, and I don't want to build this shit, but I end up buying the thing. I go home and I say, Cherie, guess what we get to do tonight? And this is like a Saturday. This is a romantic evening with Cherie, and we put together this freaking toolbox, and she's like, why are you buying this shit? I'm like, we're just going to put all this stuff on it. We're going to put it out in the garage. So I decided to tear up the entire house and decide we're going to minimize and get rid of a bunch of stuff. And I get Cherie, who's a really skilled plastic surgeon, putting together a toolbox, and she did a better job than me. So I wake up in the morning I didn't go to bed till after midnight, wake up around 6 a.m. I couldn't go back to sleep. I have this workout at 9. I walk out the house, there's crap everywhere. I'm like, I got to put all this stuff away. This is ridiculous. Got a meeting coming up this week. So I spend 2 hours just going through the whole house, and then I load all this stuff up on this big heavy toolbox and haul it out into the garage. And how many of you have been in my house? Yeah. So like the little garage area where you walk in, so I have to maneuver it through there. In the midst of this, I totally strained my back. And then I go to this workout and I tell Bill, I go, my back kind of hurts a little bit, so I got to make sure I don't. He's like, okay, we'll put you on the MedX machine, we'll work on the back. And I'm sitting there thinking I'm not doing anything to strain my back, but I am aggravating the hell out of it. And when I'm done, I'm like, oh God, my back hurts, and now I have all this stuff I tell people about physical pain. This is, whatever. And so I go to this place in Scottsdale. If you ever want to go, it's amazing. It's called Authentic Thai Massage. You've been there before, right, Jim? I've referred like hundreds of people to this place. And they walk on your back and they do all this stuff. And by the time I'm done with that, which was a really bad idea, I have really aggravated the hell out of my back. And so for the rest of the week, I am like, my back is completely tweaked. I'm not able to work. And I know that Whitney and Ashley are downstairs like going, you moron. So everyone's like, oh, you got to go see this person, you got to do this, you got to do that, and it's wonderful because I have so many people that want to help me, and most of the people are just trying to, and I call it, and I send a text to Steve. I go, Steve, my back, he goes, you want to call me later? I'm like, sure. He's like, I have appointments till 7 p.m. So those of you, if anyone here struggles with physical pain, and has anyone ever done a session with Steve Ozanich, who wrote The Great Pain Deception? Has it been helpful to you? Yeah, can you speak to it? Yeah, because I'm telling you, as I just noticed how much my back hurts, as I just saw tell you. Yeah, Steve Ozanich.
I'm formulating a theory about what you just shared as well, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. So we talked about this loads last night, but the idea of TMS is that most chronic, long-lasting things, whether it be pain or some other physical manifestation, illness, etc., has been brought on by our brain, not imagined, but our brain is struggling with something emotionally, doesn't want us to deal with it, so it distracts us with something else.
Yes.
And I, in the last year, have cured myself, I can't find a better phrase than that, of complex regional pain syndrome, which is supposed to be incurable.
Yeah.
Osteoarthritis in my toes, and I run again now. Extreme seasonal allergies, Raynaud's syndrome, POTS, a whole bunch of other things, because I was that perfect example of I really look after myself, and yet I wasn't getting the end result. I had a 2-hour turn into a 3-hour Zoom with Steve Ozanich as part of that.
Yeah.
And he really helped me with like the final pieces that I wasn't able to fix. But what's intriguing me, and this, we talked about this a little bit last night, is even though what you've just done is an acute thing, so it's not chronic, so don't think of it as long-lasting, I'm starting to wonder how often those things actually are TMS brought on by the brain anyway. So you even said it, Joe, that you think you've been stressed and then you've done something and you're busy and you're not as focused as you should be, and your body or your brain has brought that on. But what if you're not injured right now? Now, I'm sure if we physically looked at you, there'd be something. If we press your back, it'll hurt and you're struggling to move properly. But what if actually it's still TMS? And because Eric, you asked me the question, you said sometimes you find like you hurt yourself or something happens and then you can just immediately get rid of it. And that's literally happened a few times recently, including the gym down here yesterday morning. I pulled the muscle and really quickly, like, oh my God, and I thought, I don't buy it. I'm not so sure. I think I'm strong and I know what I'm doing. And it went away immediately. Right. Yeah. And that's not in some chronic area or whatever else. It just makes me wonder, is there something to deal with in here or in here? And your back might then be absolutely fine. It's not that it's not physically a thing, it's real. Yeah. But if the cause was in here, then maybe the solution is as well.
Well, I believe that to be the case. Now let me say, in case anyone's lost in what he's talking about. So the term TMS stands for, so Dr. John Sarno for 50 years treated people with all kinds of pain, back, neck, knee, shoulders, and he did all the typical things, surgery that the people that were back surgeons and pain doctors would do. And he would notice that people after the surgeries or after the treatment would get better, and then it would come back, or it would move to a different part of the body. And he called that the pain derivative, where if you go and get a manipulation from a chiropractor, or you go get a surgery, you go get prolotherapy or PRP, or you do traction, or you do whatever, acupuncture, go to a physical therapist, massage, whatever, that the pain may subside or go away. But if you get surgery, the trigger point, they're like, oh, now it's fixed, it would go into a different part of the body. So he called that the pain derivative. And he found that the physical sensation of pain is caused by oxygen deprivation in the muscles, tendons, ligaments brought on by, well, first he thought it was just muscles, but then he called it tension myositis syndrome, TMS. Then he's like, well, it's also in the ligaments and the tendons, so he started calling it tension myoneural syndrome. And then now they just call it the mind-body syndrome. And it's oxygen deprivation is the cause of the feeling of pain. There are real injuries, there are breaks, there are tears. So, but 99.999% of what's being treated by doctors, physical therapists, acupuncturists, chiropractors, they're treating something that is psychosomatic, but they think it's structural. And it's not because they're bad doctors, and it's not because they don't know what they're doing. And some of them are very smart. And I've seen a couple hundred chiropractors. We have a couple, we've had a couple. We have a few chiropractors and physical therapists that are Genius Network members. Is anyone in the room a chiropractor right now? Yep. So I don't, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, because you've heard me ramble about this too. Because I've helped chiropractors and doctors that are surgeons that cannot get out of pain, that were the most resistant to any of this, and I'm like, do a session with Steve Ozanich, read any of Dr. John Sarno's books, and they get out of pain if they believe this. And so I had chronic pain my entire adult life. When I used to journal in my 20s, I would write, when I was a carpet cleaner, I would write, and I forgot all about this until I went back and read journals. Almost every day I was writing about how much my neck hurt, how much my back hurt. And now with working with addicts and people that are in a lot of trauma, they usually don't say this, but they have constant physical pain. And entrepreneurs have a lot of physical pain. And the people that have the most physical pain, ironically, are non-narcissistic, empathetic, really caring people, because what Sarno said, the cause of the pain is repressed emotions that causes the oxygen deprivation in the muscles, tendons, ligaments, and it's unconscious, and it's your brain's way of trying to protect yourself from feeling emotions you don't want to feel. So it creates this pain, and since the first chapter of my book, What's in It for Them, is be a pain detective, you know, I'm looking at this whole thing, okay, what is this trying to tell me? Because the way that most entrepreneurs will take vacations or take time off, if you're really driven, you know, typical type A, high quick start, ADD, you know, all these labels that you can, you know, look at that people are labeled as, that sort of persona, that driven entrepreneur, the way that most of them will take time off is they get sick, you know, or they get hurt. And it's like, you know, it's like, fuck it, if you're not going to slow down, I'm going to slow you down. And so when I was having a conversation with Steve, I said, Steve, what do you think's going on right now? I go, my sense of what's going on is that this is a really intense week. This is the week that we're waiting to get the green light on the physical recovery kits going into pharmacies. A lot of stuff going on. Got a meeting coming. A lot of stuff going on, right? And he goes, first off, you're in spasm. And what Sarno would say is that if you're in spasm, sometimes, you know, take an aspirin or drink a glass of wine and try to relax. And at some point it will dissipate, you know, because you can fight it all. The fighting it is what causes it to hold on. And he says what happens when people are, you know, because Sarno would also say, someone would say, I lifted something that was too heavy. And he said, well, if it was too heavy, you wouldn't have been able to lift it. And people are like, it's my pillow. He's like, that's bullshit. It has nothing to do with pillows, has nothing to do with mattresses, has nothing to do with any of that. It's you know, it's your brain trying to protect you from feelings, and it's going to make you hurt. And so, and again, had I not interviewed him in 2015 after I did a Zoom call, well, a Skype call, Zoom didn't exist back then, I was in such physical pain after I had a supposed torn meniscus in my right knee, and I say supposed because anyone over the age of 35 that goes and gets a scan, an MRI is going to show herniations, spinal stenosis, disc degeneration, and there's an army of doctors and surgeons. See, there's no money in TMS. There's nothing to pay for. There's no treatment to do. I used to go to chiropractors, I used to go to all the time because I was hurting. Something was wrong. And I rarely have physical pain anymore. But according to scans, I have 2 herniated discs in my low back, 2 in my neck, a torn meniscus in my right knee. Never had surgery for any of this stuff. And I have slight scoliosis, that sort of thing. But people that have severe scoliosis actually have less pain than people that have slight scoliosis because they have been trained that you're supposed to hurt all the time. And so it's a very complicated thing. And let me say this, there's nothing, if you've never heard about this before, and this is the first time, there's no way your brain will accept this. You're going to think I'm full of shit completely, because that's normal. You have to read the books. You have to get an understanding. I read Sarno's book 15 years prior, and I refused to believe that this is possible, that this is psychosomatic. I was like, there's no way. Like, it's in your head. It's like, no, it's real pain. When I had the torn meniscus, my knee was, I mean, I can show you videos. My knee was twice the size. Connie Mariano, who was the White House doctor, she was the primary doctor for Bush, for Clinton, and then doctor for Bush Jr. and Bush Sr. And then when Obama was elected, she left the White House. She moved to Scottsdale, and she became a concierge doctor. So I was paying her a lot of money to be my concierge doctor. She could get appointments with anyone right away. I mean, you wanted to go to see the top surgeon for the Suns, take you 6 months to a year. She could make a phone call. You're in there within 48 hours. And that's what. So after I tore the meniscus, I went and saw the top doctor at the time for the Suns. He's like, yeah, nothing you can do. You're gonna have to have surgery. And I'm like, what the fuck? I was doing P90X. I don't, like, I'm in my 40s. Like, how did I? And I went to Connie. I go, can I get a second opinion? And she's like, yeah, go to see this guy who was the top doctor at the time for the Diamondbacks. Said the same thing. And I was like, you know, and I researched knee surgery, that most people that get knee surgery doesn't really do that much. And and then I started having pain everywhere. My wrist started hurting. I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't do yoga. I was like, and my body started deteriorating, and I started getting all these pains, my shoulder. And finally, the pain had gotten so severe that I had, you know, started looking online. I remember Sarno, and I started listening to Sarno's book, Healing Back Pain, which I recommend. Download the book. If any of you have anyone in your family or yourself has any physical pain, download Healing Back Pain. It's the only book that Sarno did in his own voice, but he also has The Divided Mind, the Mind-Body Prescription. He's helped millions of people out of physical pain. If you listen to the interview that Howard Stern did with John Sarno, it's the nicest you will ever hear Howard be to another person. He's like, he's like, you saved my life. He did a great story on with John Stossel years ago on ABC's 2020, because John Stossel was in severe pain and his brother was in like a wheelchair from pain, and he showed the whole story. I mean, Sarno has helped millions of people get out of physical pain, and the guy that has carried on his work is Steve Ozanich, who's in his now 65s, terrible entrepreneur, amazing human, knows more about the permanent elimination of pain than anyone I've ever met. And when I was in such severe pain, I was like, I'm gonna have to get surgery. I mean, fuck it. I've been trying to treat this knee for the longest time, and so I go, and I'll finish up story, and then we'll come. And I look up online, is there anyone, and I started listening to Sarno's book again. I'm like, damn it. And this is a book 15 years prior I said was bullshit. Jim, do you remember this conversation years ago where I tried to tell you about this stuff?
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
No, but I remember trying to turn. First off, I was going to be nice to you, but now I'm not. So I was trying. Jim was like, no, because I think you had some pain, and I'm like, dude, and you're like, no, fuck, are you kidding me? I've got an injury. I got something like I can't remember.
Pain was my relationship with you.
No
pain.
You know, I bet. Yeah. You should separate permanently for that.
She can't elbow me today, so that's why I'm starting off bad.
So here's the thing. If you look at the tension and the stress in the world right now, there is an epidemic. Like Sarno referenced this article where, how many of you are old enough to remember when everybody had an ulcer back in the 70s and 80s? Okay, so Sarno wrote an article, where have all the ulcers, well, he references an article, where have all the ulcers gone? Once they determined that ulcers were caused by bacteria and stress, all of a sudden, all these ulcers, millions of people worldwide, ulcers disappeared, and it's been replaced by back pain, knee pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, fibromyalgia, carpal tunnel, all of these conditions that are predominantly caused by TMS. Gabor Mate, who wrote When the Body Says No, Kimberly, Shannon Murphy back there, who I'm going to do an interview with later, she's fucking awesome. She can really speak to the subject of trauma tremendously. You know, Gabor actually wrote a foreword for one of Steve Ozanich's books, And so many autoimmune conditions are the same mechanism, which is repressed emotions. And so one of the things that Gabor says, if you're in a situation where you can't run away, you can't fight back, you can't ask for help, two things that humans do: they either develop a disease like cancer or an autoimmune condition, or an addiction or physical pain. That's what it is. So they addiction, or they have some sort of condition of that happens. So to Jim's point, yeah, I hurt myself, but I was like, why did I hurt myself? And why is it hanging on here? And so I called up Steve, and he's like, yep. He goes, if you're in a situation where you're finding yourself getting injured, like, look at the tension that's going on in your life right beforehand. And I actually think that's what's going on. And yeah.
Can I add to it as well?
Yeah.
You then did a sequence of things that probably told your brain that it was a real physical thing, not mental, because you went to the gym and said, don't hurt my back more and adjust what we do. So then your unconscious goes, cool, he believes it. Now I need to go and have a massage, which means it's physical, not so
you are so
on some level you probably
right.
layered it on to convince yourself all the more it really is physical, which means then it won't stop hurting until you let go of that and believe that actually I know exactly what brought this on.
Yeah. It's, if you've had a football injury, or you've had a car accident, you now have a trigger point. And whenever something's going on, you're like, oh, I injured myself. So whenever we've had an injury, or we've been labeled we've had an injury, whenever there's tension, that's the point where it goes to. So you're absolutely right. It's the domino effect. So I was going to, but go ahead, Marcus, and then we'll.
Real quick. So after I listened to your interview, and I read the Great Pain Deception by Ozanich. I called Ozanich, and we got to know him. Sheila and I did sessions with him, and then we hired him to come in. No, we didn't even hire him. He gave his time to us to come in and be a special guest speaker for a virtual retreat that we were having.
Oh, wow.
And one thing he does is he undercharges. He's only $125 an hour when you work with him. And
I thought he was more, but that, and believe me, I've tried to.
Yeah, this is 4
the guy's so good.
He's a wonderful guy, like you said. He's a really great
amazing
guy.
human.
And what you guys have said about this is just so right on. It's all working in the emotional body, under rage and anger that we just tamp down, and how the body, like you said, doesn't want us to have to experience these unpleasant emotions. One of the things we found is the breathing really helps to accelerate the recirculation and the oxygenation of those areas that are inflamed.
Well, I did a breath class. Where's Parth at? When was that? Was that Tuesday night? Yeah, Tuesday night we went to a 90-minute breath class. Yeah. And when I was done, the pain was not there.
Exactly.
Until I got back up again, and then my brain, my conscious brain, is like, oh, am I still? Yeah.
And so in the in-breath, visualizing circulation, oxygenation, I use a blue light in my body when I'm in the in-breath, and every physical pain we have goes away.
Yeah.
And it's like a little miracle, isn't it?
It really is. And look, I bring this up because during conversations, I always know there's someone's like, what the hell does this have to do? How many of you, this is your first Genius Network meeting? In person. Could you imagine what's going through their heads right now? This is not the typical opening of a Genius Network meeting. Usually we play AI videos that I cringe at, which we're going to do momentarily, and that sort of stuff. But the purpose of Genius Network is this is a connection network, and it's health, wealth, and elf. So health, mental and physical health. It's wealth, not just making money, but not losing it, managing it. Two different skill sets, which Jim Dew could speak to. Unfortunately, I hate giving him credit for something right now, but he's very smart in the not wasting money category, because you've seen many entrepreneurs that have millions of dollars go through their hands and they have nothing to show for it. And then there's ELF, doing things that are easy, lucrative, and fun versus hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. So we're going to cover all of these topics in Genius Network and a whole bunch more. And most of the value of this group is the connection. It's a connection network. It's not a mastermind. We do masterminding here, but it is a connection network. And if I'm disconnected from myself, then I have things like physical pain. I have things like addiction cravings and stuff like that. Let's go to you first, and then we'll come back to you, Stefan, because this, I actually recommended, Mr. Ozanich to speak with Stefan, and he's such a terrible business guy, but he's such a good human. And I've just for years, he's one of these people, I don't think don't think it's possible to teach him how to be a good marketer, because he's like very Eckhart Tolle-ish, and he's always in the present moment, so he can't figure out like websites or building anything, and but he's so fucking good at helping people get out of pain.
Yeah, no, just to add, I guess some encouragement, but also my witness to those of you who maybe do have chronic pain. After my kidnapping, I developed severe chronic pain for many years, and then heard about John Sarno's work. It was recommended that I read The Divided Mind. This was almost 20 years ago, and the promise that he makes at the beginning of the book is that simply by understanding what's going on in this psychosomatic, this mind-body pain that's been created, that by the end of the book, many people actually experience a total loss of this pain, that it just goes away. And I had been all over the country seeing experts trying to figure out, how do I solve this pain? How do I get rid of it? Being diagnosed with, all sorts of maladies. And my experience was, by the time I finished the last page, shut the book, and then woke up the next morning, all the pain was gone. And it's been gone for almost 20 years. Yeah. So just in the interest of adding a witness to everything that Joe's saying, in the hopes that maybe it can serve one of you, it worked. It worked for me. And so I would encourage you to really take it seriously and look into it, because it was as shocking to me at the time that it worked that it kind of feels even sharing right now, but that is what happened for me.
Yeah, 60% of the people that read the book, the pain goes away. Another 20%, they need to go deeper with it, because we're so convinced and trained that we are these fragile creatures that, we're on typewriters all the time, we're on phones, we don't have the right mattress, you don't have the right chair. And so we're conditioned to believe that that there's something wrong. And then the final 20%, because it works 100% of the time, if you believe. So Evan, this is the closest I'll get to the believe stuff of really, if you believe. And so by the way, those of you who don't know Evan has 3.7 million subscribers on YouTube. He trains some of the top influencers on how to build a YouTube channel. Genuinely amazing human. I stayed at his house in Toronto last week, which is a cool freaking house, and very his wife is cooler than him, but still, no, I'm kidding. They're both super sweet. But his whole message is about his whole message is about belief.
Jim Dew is here. So he gets to be the one you pick on this time.
Okay, yeah. No, I was trying not to pick on you. I was sort of picking on you, just a little bit. Yeah.
Badge of honor.
No, and by the way, I've known Jim for over 20-something years, so if any of you think that I'm being cruel or whatever, if you understood Jim, you would feel that I'm like an angel the way that we treat this man, because he's just a sort of a despicable person, but he's very smart. No, I'm kidding. No, but see, people we would do on the reviews are like, I don't understand like why you guys are so mean to each other. This is not being mean. This is like male bonding, weird form of dysfunctional like love and care that we have.
It's actually the nicest we usually are to each other.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, Mimi's the buffer though, because if Jim did not have Mimi in his life, she's like the halo effect that he gets that he does not deserve. That's so yeah. You remember when I was interviewing Marilyn? Were you here when I interviewed Marilyn Murray? Was anyone here for that meeting? Yeah. So Marilyn is 87 years old. I talked to her today. She's on Zoom. She's going to watch me do an interview with Kimberly Shannon Murphy, because I think she's going to love you, and I think if you meet her. So she's the first woman to ever bring women's support groups to Arizona in the 60s. She's an amazing therapist. She was very successful in being an art dealer when she was in her 20s and 30s, and she had never dealt with the trauma of being raped by multiple military men when she was 8 years old. And she told nobody about it. There was no treatment, there was nothing. And she ran women's groups for many years, but never dealt with her own stuff. And she finally, in her mid-40s, she went to a friend's recommendation in San Francisco to go to a place for a couple of weeks. She ended up spending 7 months there and just going into the deepest recesses of her life. And she came out, and she's been just this amazing therapist since. She's written a book called, if you've ever heard of the trauma egg, which a lot of therapists, she invented that. So the trauma egg, she wrote the Murray Method, and she wrote Prisoner of Another War, and she's the first woman that ever had gone into prisons, and for 8 years pro bono she consulted and did therapy with child molesters, sex offenders, and rapists. And she's like this magical woman that just helps sexual abuse survivors and people that struggle with addiction. And so she's here. And the reason I bring that up is I said, So Marilyn, if I'm making fun of someone here in the audience or whatever, is how do you view sarcasm? Because she goes, usually you're just trying to cover something up, and I'm like, yeah, I have a lot of. So whenever you see that, you know, it's still my dysfunction that I haven't dealt with. So yeah, but I love you, Jim. You're very sweet.
I love you too. I share the dysfunction.
Yeah. So, but I actually, so Stefan, sorry. And by the way, those of you, I still must say, this at some of you, I know this is like, what are you talking about right now? Trust me, there will be a point in time when you have pain or someone close to you will come back to this conversation and it will be significant. So that's the reason I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share synchronicity and thank you for being part of that synchronicity relating to Steve Ozanich. Just the day before you texted me out of the blue about Steve and introduced us, my wife, she's been having some hip pain, and it just popped in my head, I should have her listen to or watch your interview of Steve.
Yeah.
And so I gave that to her. She hadn't watched it yet, and then boom, out of the blue, you text me the next day.
Wow.
The introduction to Steve. And I did interview him on my podcast. It hasn't aired yet, but Get Yourself Optimized. It'll air in a couple weeks. And he's just an amazing soul.
Yeah.
He's all love and light. And yeah, he's not a good entrepreneur, but I think we can help him because we're a powerful network of go-getters and we have a lot of reach. Yeah. So I had a conversation with him on the side, like a separate call, going over his website, and he doesn't have anybody to help him. I'm trying to help him I filled out a whole questionnaire, or had my team help me fill that questionnaire out so that he could send it in to a headhunting firm in the Philippines. It's like $600, a virtual staff finder. They'll find him a half-time or full-time VA to help him maintain his website because he never touches it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have anybody to even update typos or anything on it. And I don't know if he's going to do it on his own, so I feel like I have to.
Well, I'm always pushing the guy to do stuff. And by the way, I mean, if you'll help with this, I'll pay for it. I mean, I don't care. Like I've been for years touting his stuff because we've helped hundreds of people get out of physical pain that could not get. I mean, people going to surgeries, they're getting treatment all the time, and I've some people that'll do 1 or 2 Zoom sessions with him, and the pain is gone.
Yeah.
Stuff they've been dealing with for 2 decades.
So my wife, Orion, had an amazing session with him, and he did like 2.5 hours, 3 hours with her. It's incredible. She wants to do another one. She got a lot of help from that and from him. And he's so inexpensive. Like I would just love to pay him money to have conversations with him. I don't have like a lot of chronic pain issues or anything. And I know we could send him business, and he is really reliant on referrals. So, you know, just steveozanich.com.
Set up a session with him. If you want to have your mind blown, seriously, steveozanich.com. He wrote a book called The Great Pain Deception. I think it's paindeception.com is also one of his websites. He's wrote 3 books, but the real bit, he spent 10 years writing the most exhaustive book on Sarno's work, and he's one of the few people that doesn't try to make Sarno's work their own. There's so many people that are now making a business out of acting like they invented what Dr. John Sarno came up with, and he super edifying, which I love, because I mean I appreciate people that don't steal other people's shit and respect other people's IP. And John Sarno endorsed his book, which is super rare because Sarno would not endorse anything. And you know, he lived such a painful life. When you read this guy's story, the majority of his adult life was just he would crawl around. There were times where he would go like he could not walk. He would literally have to crawl around the living room. He had his legs would go numb. He had serious pain, and it didn't heal right away. He was a tough case. It took him about 1.5 years before his brain could really accept this, and now he's in his mid-60s and he hasn't had pain for years.
Yeah, I fixed some stuff mid-reading the first Sarno book, and then other stuff took me 6 months, and Steve's help, and multiple books, and so on. He wrote another book, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like the top 10 findings of
Sarno's
Sarno.
top health.
It's like 50 pages, and it's so bite-sized. I really recommend that one as well as a way in, because it's almost less threatening
like
than this 400-page.
Sarno's Healing Discoveries or something.
Yeah.
Well, so, I mean, pull it up on Amazon. We could, you know.
But he also, if you want another real-world one, he asked me to do a testimonial for him. So it's on. So it's on YouTube. It's just me waffling for 20 minutes about this shit. But he just wanted me to share the experience. So if that's useful for people, they can see that as well.
Well, so check this out. So Steve has the best stories, and it's called the Wall of Victory. And he has people share their stories, and people that are struggling with pain. A lot of people that have healed have never bought anything from him, have never done a session with him. They just go to YouTube and they watch Wall of Victory, and they hear people tell their stories, because that's the value of story. It's like, I've been there, and he's the YouTube videos, like I've told him, like, to watch sessions with Evan, who can the thumbnails are terrible, the opening is boring. I mean, everything about the videos, you would look at this and be like, oh my god, this is like sales prevention department at the umpteenth level. But it's but it's good stuff if you just sit and hear those stories.
Okay, I hope you found that video awesome and useful. So if you want to get a free copy of my book, I want you to click here. And if you want to watch some more videos that'll be useful and awesome, click here. Go ahead. They're over here. Do it now. Come on. Thank you. Watch them.